Did you get it, Shruti? I've sent it on like twice, so you can just check.
Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You can refer to the second one. It has 2 attachments. One's the PPT and one's a PDF. So whichever one is fine.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you. Sorry again.
No issues.
Hey, Bhavini, Deepa here. So I'll be doing a quick introduction before we get on the
Sure.
session. So would you help me pronounce your surname?
Yeah, it's Bhavini Jhaveri Jairazbhoy.
I don't think I get it, sorry.
So just say Bhavini Jhaveri, no problem.
Jhaveri?
Jhaveri, yeah. Same as
Jhaveri.
yeah.
Okay, I'll try.
Yeah, no problem. You can just say Bhavini also, it's okay.
Yeah, I think that's safe for me.
Totally.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So it's 4. Should I start letting people in?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm ready.
Hi, all. Good evening. Thanks for joining today's session. We'll wait for a couple minutes for others to join. Hi, I think we should get started. I hope okay, Bhavini. Yeah.
Yep.
Hi, all. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining this another session of on mental health this evening. So I would like to have a quick introduction about Bhavini, who's here to who's accepted to doing this session today. Thank you so much for that, Bhavini. So Bhavini is a certified holistic health and wellness coach accredited by the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, IIN, New York. She aims to empower clients to recognize and value the significance of health and its impact on our physical and emotional well-being. Having experienced her own set of health obstacles, Bhavini discovered the transformative potential of aligning with our authentic mind and body simply by imbibing what nature offers us. Bhavini's focus is on raising awareness and empowering clients to cultivate a healthier connection between their mind and body while instilling sustainable lifestyle shifts that include and expand beyond their plate. She adopts an inclusive approach, taking into account each individual's unique preferences, biology, and environment. Bhavini equips clients with the understanding that health is far more than the absence of disease. It encompasses a holistic state of thriving. We just need to learn to listen to the body and its signals. That's a great background about you, Bhavini. Thank you so much, and I'll leave the floor to you to take it forward.
Thank you so much, Deepa, and thank you everyone for joining the session. I hope this really does empower you. Just as Deepa mentioned, I'm a holistic health and wellness coach, and I focus on, just like she said, health is not merely the absence of disease. It's far more than that, and we need to really strive for that. As a holistic coach, I believe that health is also not restricted to just the food we eat, but it goes beyond that. It's how we feel, it's what we think. And without our mental and emotional well-being, it's impossible to deem ourselves healthy. And I think we get so caught up in focusing on just what we eat. We don't think about, stress management and other aspects of life. I love talking about all things health, which is also why I am here. And today we're going to be talking specifically about fatigue, chronic fatigue to be specific, and how it does impact our lives. And a lot of us may even have it or have, versions of it. And it's a very hard one to diagnose. If I can just request for the screen to be shared, please.
Yeah, just give me a minute.
Sure. Thank you. So while that's happening, I can start just introducing the concept. Thank you. So what is chronic fatigue, right? I think that let's start with the definition. Fatigue is it's not that one day of being tired because, I've been watching Netflix all night, or a week of a wedding in the family. It's when I am constantly tired for a period of 6 months, despite trying my best efforts to stay on track. So it's when even if I'm sleeping, even if I'm eating well, all of that, and I'm still feeling exhausted, right? So if we can just go skip to the next 2 slides, please. The next one as well. Thank you. So the Mayo Clinic definition is: it causes extreme fatigue that lasts for 6 months. Symptoms worsen with physical or mental activity, but don't fully improve with rest. So despite our efforts, there's no change. And the unfortunate thing is there is no test like there is for, hypertension or diabetes. There's no single test that will determine if you have chronic fatigue. You have to do a variety of medical tests to eliminate. It's almost a process of elimination. I eliminate constantly all the other health concerns that possibly could be tagged to the symptoms you have. And then the doctors decide whether it's chronic fatigue or not, right? So it's not as straightforward. So even if you Google it, there's no real medication for, we all like to Google everything. So there's no one medication for it. A lot of times we're given antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication to kind of get to just keep us going, but that doesn't sort us out from the root. If we can get the next slide, please. I thought we'd start with a case study. So this is my client, Helen. She grew up in Hong Kong. We can go to the next one. We grew up in Hong Kong. She grew up in Hong Kong and then moved to England to further her studies. And when we started working together, she just moved to Scotland, right? Because she wanted a slightly more quiet life. When she was, I think, in her mid-20s is when symptoms started kind of surfacing. She would get more tired than her colleagues, her friends. She just started working. So she put it down to, I have to work, I have to still socialize, I have, bills to pay, house to run, all of that. So she tried to take a step back. She stopped socializing as much, but she realized her symptoms only got progressively worse. It got to a point where she couldn't get out of bed immediately, like how most of us just get out of bed, because we are still tired, but it would take her 30 minutes, an hour, sometimes even longer just to pull herself out of bed. Her muscles, her joints, everything were hurting. Even if she had to walk a slight incline, it would be a huge effort to her. And it takes a lot to understand that. I think if we've never felt that level of exhaustion, it's very difficult to understand. But imagine being constantly tired like that. It's just exhausting to be exhausted, if that makes sense. And it came to a point where she couldn't live her life normally. And this went on for months and maybe close to a year before she finally went to the doctor. They ran a series of tests. The process of elimination started. Then they had many consults. She was in therapy as well after a point. And that's when they diagnosed her with ME, which is chronic fatigue. ME is the clinical term used. And she was diagnosed with chronic fatigue. There's no medication. They gave her antidepressants and told her that, there'll be good days, bad days, but get on with it. There's nothing we can do. So I think a while later, she, through word of mouth, she got in touch with me. And we decided that we're going to go very slowly, because making changes for her also is just exhausting. We're going to go slowly. We're going to reset. We're going to rewire and see where this takes us. I'd like to also add that Helen had a very traumatic childhood. She, I think it was in her teen years, her parents divorced, and it was not the easiest time for her. It was a very toxic period. One thing led to another. There was bullying happening. There was, she didn't have the support that she should to even process a lot of this. So things started catching up. And I think we kind of determined, and there is no one reason why ME or any other illness happens, but we put it down to, it was her body shutting down. It was her body saying, we need to save energy. We need to reserve energy. You've used too much. So let's slow down. And this is what then resulted in chronic fatigue. So what did we do? Over a period of 6 months, which is the period we worked together for, we started adding foods that were easy to digest and nature compatible. What does nature compatible mean? It means that foods provided to us by nature. So fruits, vegetables, your lentils, your sprouts, your herbs, your spices. We focused on that. We rather than looking at elimination, which is usually what happens when we go to, a dietitian, we start saying, don't eat this, don't eat that, no junk food, all the obvious things. I prefer to go the other way, where we start adding foods, and it comes to a point where, because you're full and satisfied, the cravings and the space in your stomach to eat all the other junk food slowly goes down automatically. And it's just a more positive approach, right? So before I could share this, I reached out to Helen and I ran this by her, and she was very happy for me to share this and see if her case could help anybody. And she gave me an update on where she is a year later. If we can go to the next slide. This is exactly the message she sent me, which is, so overall, my symptoms have been better, and it's definitely been down to the improved diet. Not as strict as when we were working together, but keeping some of the habits like raw foods and reducing gluten, dairy, and regular gentle exercise with my morning walks. We've been going through some stressful times at home with work and my husband's project, so I've definitely slipped the last few weeks. And as a result, my symptoms are slightly increased. But even with that, it's definitely way better than when we first met. So at the end of the 6 months, she was able to get out of bed. And there were days where she didn't even struggle to get out of bed. She was sleeping better. She has 2 kids. So she's managing her 2 kids, the house. Her husband was traveling a lot, so that much more responsibility on her. And she was feeling a lot better. It is hard to always stay on track, but I think she was committed to feeling better. And she, as you can see, this is an honest response where, of course, we can't always be on track, but she's aware of what works for her body and what doesn't. So I wanted to share this, and I hope this helps you all relate to chronic fatigue and how it can really impact somebody. We can go to the next slide. Well, this is just one client's journey, and we definitely can't limit the whole disease to just her study. I'd like to go through some of the possible causes of chronic fatigue. These are just some of them, not all of them, but these are the main ones. And so let's go through them. We can go to the next slide, please. The first one is high toxicity, which is when it's an indication that the liver is not working properly and it's not able to do its job. What's the liver's job? It's to support, clean, and to remove waste from our body. And this typically happens between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. in the night when we are asleep. It does not happen if we're awake during those hours. And a lot of us, which is the next point, is we don't sleep enough. We don't sleep on time.
Can't hear you, ma'am. Can't hear you.
We're unable to hear you.
I guess there's some connectivity issues. Let's just give her a couple of minutes.
Sorry about that. The first thing to go is our sleep. So we need to ensure we're getting about 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And we'll talk about more about this in the healing part. The next one, which is going to be quite the protagonist through this entire talk, is stress. I do not mean we need to eradicate stress. I do not mean you need to live a life without stress. That is impossible. The only place people are not enduring stress is probably a morgue or a cemetery. There's no way any of us live lives without stress. We have our daily stresses, we have extreme stresses, and we have good stress as well. So for example, exercise, that's good stress, and we need some of this. But when we have chronic stress, which is the negative stress every day without managing it, that's when it becomes a problem. The next one is trauma. So like in Helen's case, right? When she was a child, she had trauma, and she's spending her adulthood, which I think most of us do, is our childhood baggage is what we use our adult life to kind of work through. Our childhood wires us a certain way. We need to understand, we need to acknowledge when certain things have happened in our lives. And if we don't face them, if we don't work through them, again, it catches up with us. It's going to shut us down to a certain point where the body slows and it cannot cope with the daily activities, right? And the next one is intolerances, which means some of us and a lot of us are probably intolerant to some foods, but what do we do? So for example, I can't enjoy that samosa, but I really want it. So I'll pop an antacid, I'll pop a pill if I'm bloated, I'll find ways around it, but I'll keep feeding and fueling my body with all the wrong things, right? And eventually, again, the body slows down. It cannot cope. The liver cannot eliminate everything, especially if there are intolerances associated. Can we go to the next slide, please? So what are the symptoms? How do we know if we are dealing with chronic fatigue, or if chronic fatigue is something that doesn't seem too far away? How are we going to deal with the situation? What are the symptoms? Let's have a look. So lack of energy, as mentioned, on a regular basis, this is obvious. For a prolonged period of time. Again, if you know you're not sleeping and if you fix that and you feel better, then it's not chronic fatigue. It's fatigue and it needs to be worked on before it gets out of hand. Lack of mental clarity, that feeling of disassociation where you can't focus. There's brain fog, or you're doing one activity and you suddenly forget, and this keeps happening repeatedly and it gets progressively worse over time. You need to look into that. Tired but wired. I think a lot of us will relate to this, where we're tired through the day, come bedtime, suddenly our mind wakes up and we're just, it's like many tabs open and in our head, and we're just going through our day, going through the issues, going through tomorrow, thinking of our to-do list. You need to find a system that stops you from doing that. We need a screensaver when we're ready for bed, right? Bacterial infections, repeated recurrent bacterial infections, and they don't need to be severe ones. It could be as simple as low-grade fevers. It could be constipation even. Any of these recurrent issues in our body is a sign it's not working. There is an imbalance. We need to do something to fix it. And while I'm not saying don't medicate, yes, medicate when you have to, but try find a sustainable long-term system that allows your body to fuel itself and keep going without relying on medication. Antibiotics, we pop them like candy. Dolos, we pop them like candy. I think I don't remember the figures, but some ridiculous number of pills that have been popped throughout COVID. Of course, you need them, yes, but it can't be that often. We're wiping our entire gut. And once we do that, immunity drops and it's a vicious cycle again, right? Dormant viruses. I'm not sure if many of you have heard of the Epstein-Barr virus. It's one of the very common autoimmune disease that can lie dormant in us for a while. There can be a small trigger that then brings it out in different ways. So, whether it's shingles, chronic fatigue is one of the obvious ones of it. And the good thing is with dormant viruses, with Epstein-Barr virus, there is a test for it. You can test for it. So if you feel you're constantly getting sick or there are signs of autoimmune, it's worth getting tested for. And these can be managed through lifestyle changes. For women, UTI, recurrent UTIs, is a big one. It really, it's very painful. It can really slow you down, needs to get checked. And once you get a UTI, it's very common to keep getting it, right? Our immune system is low then. Pneumonia, again, another one. If it keeps happening, you need to get it checked. Your lungs need to be in check. It's not okay to have a cough every other month. It's not okay. You need to fix it. Next slide, please. Emotional turmoil is a symptom when we constantly feel overwhelmed with natural stresses, right? Our days are going to have it. We're going to be stressed, whether it's a deadline at work or whether it's things at home, or it's just, going home, doing the routine at home, or if it's the kids. These are things that we need to be able to cope with. But if we feel constantly overwhelmed, then we need to check why. Maybe we need some professional help. Maybe we need strategies to keep ourselves calm, but it needs to be addressed, right? Hormonal imbalances. This is, again, a big one. What are hormones? Hormones are our messengers. They deliver messages through our body. And when these messages are not received at the right time, in the right way, with the right organs, that's when havoc starts breaking out. That's when, we see thinning of the hair, we feel low on energy, which then leads to chronic fatigue. Again, it can be fixed. All of this can be fixed. We were not born with these issues, which means everything can be reversed. We just need to pay attention. We just need to understand the signs and stop shutting our body down. Moving on, gut issues. I think all of us have heard about how important the gut is. The connect between the gut and the brain is now so important. We've realized that. There are more nerve endings in our gut than there are in our brain, which means when we feel stressed, when we feel anxious, or even excited or happy, we feel it in our gut. You can actually feel things changing inside. And so it's extremely important that we eat correctly. And there's studies to show that depression, anxiety also can be controlled if we keep our gut happy. So when you fix your gut, you fix so many other issues as well. Hypertension, I think this is just, it's hereditary, or it's in the family, there's nothing I can do about it. Absolutely not true. There's so much you can do about it. Fix it. Don't live with it. These are not things that are okay to live with. And eventually the body starts slowing down. It cannot, what is blood pressure? Blood pressure is the pressure with which your blood hits your arteries. And when it's high, it's exhausting for the body to manage. It's not supposed to be coping with so much pressure, right? So we need to calm down. We need to find strategies to calm down. Dehydration. I think this one, we think water. While water, yes, very important, but is not the only and probably not the best way to stay hydrated. We will discuss how we can stay hydrated a little further on. But it's not just about water, right? And the last one, but definitely not the least, is restrictive diets. The number of clients I have coming to me saying, I fast for 20 hours, I fast for 18 hours. And in that short window of, 4 to 6 hours, I eat whatever I want because it's okay. But I still feel tired now. My hair is falling out. And when they go back to eating normally, they gain weight like they've reached a new high in their weight scale. So restrictive diets are not sustainable. They make us miserable. We start developing a very unhealthy relationship with food. It's important to lead a balanced life. We definitely need some restriction. We need to have some boundaries with what we eat. But when we go very extreme, it's just not worth it. We need to have balance. We need to be able to go out and still enjoy a meal and enjoy that cake, enjoy that pizza without feeling guilt. We just need to know how to balance it later on, right? Can we move on, please? So this is my favorite part, is to discuss how we can heal naturally, because we can. I think sometimes we get so caught up with medication, and there's so much information out there now on, the social media platforms. We can Google everything. And sometimes it's a little overwhelming because there's so many things to do. And it's, how do I do it all? I mean, I can't eat everything on an empty stomach. I can't do everything through my day. I'm working, I have to come home. I have families to manage, kids to manage, myself to manage, social life. How do I manage it all? And it's actually not that difficult if we just simplify it. So specifically looking at chronic fatigue, let's look at some of the options. If we can Go to the next slide, please. So how do we heal naturally? Stress management. Again, like I said, I know this, I'm sure you guys are sick of hearing stress management, but I cannot tell you how important it is. Most of our issues stem from stress. If we just manage it, so much in our lives would be managed automatically. And it could just mean 10 minutes of your day. That's all. Sometimes 30 minutes. I read this somewhere where, I meditate for 10 minutes, but on days that I'm very busy, I meditate for 30 minutes because it just helps you focus so much more. And I'm not saying meditation is the only way. There's so many different ways to manage stress. So there's, there are clients that I have who like to journal. They like to write down things that are on their mind, things that they need to do, things they're grateful for. There's music therapy, there's dance therapy, there's so many options out there. But what's important is you build it into a routine. It's not today I'll do it and tomorrow I'll forget and day after I'm too busy. It's every day I need to spend X amount of time dedicated to managing my life, managing myself, managing my emotions, right? It's so important. And if you just spend that 10 minutes, it can fix so much in the long run. There's another breathing technique that I've really enjoyed doing, and a lot of my clients do and really love, which is the Wim Hof breathing technique. You can YouTube him. It's all over there. I'm happy to share links later as well. And it's intense when you do it, but after you do it, you feel so good. It helps your hair, your skin, anxiety, depression. It's really a great way to manage stress. It's 10 to 20 minutes. And if you don't even have that, I encourage you to try 20 deep breaths after lunch or just before bed, just 20 deep breaths. Put your hand on your stomach, make sure you're deep breathing, right? And see how you feel. Do this consistently for 7 to 10 days. And I promise you, you'll feel a difference, right? The next one, which is pretty obvious, and I think applies to all of us, regardless of dealing with chronic fatigue or not, is to eliminate inflammatory foods. Inflammatory foods, what do they include? Sugar, bread, anything packaged, deep fried, saturated fats. And I think as we get more and more closer to the Western way of living, we rely on these foods. They're quick fixes, but in fact, the long-term damage that they do is so significant. You won't feel it today. You have that one-off pizza, that's fine. But you're eating sugar every day in some form, and the amount of hidden sugar in our food is crazy. Our sauces have it. So many of our foods have it. We don't even realize. Read ingredients, even when they say it's no added sugar, but flip the packet and read the ingredients. If there are words in there you don't know, it's probably safer just not to buy, right? Look at things that really don't need an ingredient list or have 3 or less ingredients. Those are the foods you focus on. All right. Next is hydrate. So apart from water, how do we hydrate? This drinking 8 glasses a day, 2 gallons a day, it's not going to necessarily suffice. You drink when you're thirsty, you drink slowly, sip it. But how else can we hydrate? Our best options are electrolytes. Where do we get electrolytes? Coconut water, which we're so fortunate to have great access to in this city. Coconut water, vegetable juice, fruits, especially the citrus ones, the melons, all of them. They're so good for us. If after a workout, if you drink a glass of water or a glass of coconut water, you'll see the coconut water does so much more for you because it has electrolytes. What's in our body, what runs with our blood is electrolytes, not water. Right? So we need to kind of fuel our water. We need to add value to what we consume. So try your vegetable juices, blend them and strain them if you need, and add some pulp back because you're getting so much more than just also hydration with that. Rest, cannot say it enough. Rest is best. I understand we live extremely hectic lives, but if we do not give rest to our body will ensure we find time to rest. And in that point, it will take more time than we actually have to give. It'll shut us down. It goes into reserve mode and we slow down. And that's when chronic fatigue becomes a big issue. So rest, get your 7 to 8 hours a night. Avoid gadgets an hour before you sleep. These gadgets, the blue light that it emits tricks our body into thinking that it's still daytime. And so the melatonin release, which is what we need in order to sleep, is much less. And then when we're lying in bed, there goes our mind crazy. It's still working because it thinks it's day. Our stress hormones are still high, adrenaline's pumping. So try, an hour before, try put that phone away. Try read a book rather than staring and, aimlessly scrolling at the screen, right? Therapy and counseling, I think a lot of us don't understand or don't really appreciate the value. It doesn't, the times when I've talked to friends or family about it and their responses, but I'm not crazy, you're not crazy, why do we need therapy? If we can look after our body, if we can eat well, if we can exercise, why do we not look after our mind and our emotions? It's so important, maybe even more important, right? Today, mental well-being, I think COVID really helped us understand and appreciate. Without mental well-being, we really have nothing, right? It gets hard to work, gets hard to interact. It's so important to have your group of friends, your tribe, your people that you can rely on, who will, you can go let your hair down. That can be your therapy, but it needs to be a place where it's a non-biased, non-judgmental space where you can be honest, you can be open, you can talk, you can vent. And then it's constructive behavior after that. How do we then come up from the problems? What are the solutions? What are the next steps? So I would really encourage considering that at this point in our lives, all of us have some baggage. Like there's nobody over here who has nothing in their lives that has bothered them or is bothering them, right? The next one, exercise. How do we exercise if we're feeling tired? Again, going back to what we did with Helen, my client, is we started by saying, get out in nature, spend 10 minutes just sitting in nature, and then maybe a gentle walk. And she was fortunate when she moved to Scotland, they had lakes over there, so she'd go for a swim when the weather permitted. But over here, maybe just, the monsoon right now, it's hard to get outdoors. Go to the gym, do something at home. Start with 10 minutes and then build from there. Gentle, do yoga. Yoga increases the oxygen level in our body. It sends oxygen, it sends happy hormones, it helps our muscles, it helps us be more flexible. And yoga is from India. What we really need to use it more. I mean, the West uses it so much. I really encourage all of us to try and indulge a little bit. But exercise is a non-negotiable. You have to do it. And we need to move every single day. Intentional movement is so important. The next one is to avoid caffeine and alcohol. Caffeine is such a obvious go-to, our chai or our coffee, it's how we take a break. It's how we almost de-stress in so many ways. But what it does is it's a stimulant. When we drink coffee, it's a sharp, we suddenly feel so good. We feel we've got all the energy. But a few hours later, there's a slump. And then what do? We either need another cup of coffee or we need a quick fix when it comes to food. So we reach for the sugar things or the fried or the high fat, and it's a vicious cycle again. And, having a cup of coffee with understanding that I'm going to enjoy this coffee, that's fine. But to rely on coffee for your energy, that's where the problem is, right? The next one, alcohol. Alcohol is just, I understand a glass of nice alcohol once in a while when you're bonding with friends, that's great. But otherwise, to depend on it regularly it messes with your brain, messes with body recovery, your sleep. I mean, there's really nothing good about alcohol. And I think a lot of us abuse it. Doesn't mean you have to be an alcoholic to be abusing it, but regular drinking, every weekend binge drinking, your body's just constantly trying to recover. It doesn't have time because in the week it's go. Weekend is lack of sleep. And when we feel not so great the next day, we again make bad food choices, right? The last one is supplements. And I would say it's the one that you depend on least after trying everything else, or maybe we need an initial boost with supplements. There's one called coenzyme Q10, which I've heard is meant to be quite good. I've not tried it. I do not prescribe them to clients, but there are some who choose to take them. But it's very important to make sure your supplements are clean. A lot of supplements in India, unfortunately, are contaminated. We have a lot of chemicals, powders, preservatives, agents in them. So make sure if you are supplementing that you get good quality supplements, right? I just want to add again that just because you may not have symptoms today or tomorrow, that isn't health. Health is all encompassing. It's everything to do with life. It's so important that we fix our root, our foundation, and work on it daily. Health is not a destination. It is a journey. Every day we need to work on ourselves, right? Yeah, that's it. Thank you. The next slide is just my contact details, and I'll leave the floor open for any questions anyone may have. Are there any questions or, wait, I guess there's one here. What can we do to tackle high BP? So, there's not just one thing. Unlike medication, there's not just one way to tackle any ailment. It's looking at fixing many things. So it's about incorporating natural foods. It's about incorporating stress management. Are you deep breathing? Are you trying to spend time working on yourself? High blood pressure, you need to understand why it's come about. Something has triggered it, whether it's a diet that has too many processed foods or too many stresses in your life. So you need to work on fixing all of it. Incorporate whole natural foods. Eat some raw food with your cooked food. Have more fruits and eat your fruits on an empty stomach. Look at doing some vegetable juices and make sure you're taking time out to exercise. And it doesn't need to be high strenuous exercise, especially if it's high BP. Start slow. Do some, maybe weight training, resistance training, along with a little bit of gentle cardio or some yoga. I'm happy to, discuss this one-on-one also later if you'd like.
We have one more question, which is, does chronic fatigue also lead to depression?
It doesn't have to necessarily lead to depression. But it definitely can contribute to, when we are constantly tired, it's a very depressive state to be in. To not be able to get out of bed when you want to not be able to, walk a mile without getting tired, or to have to plan your whole day around just what you may feel like. It gets exhausting to feel that way. And yes, it can lead to depression. But there is no way I can tell you that it's this percentage of, if you have chronic fatigue, then there's a 50% chance it will lead to depression. There is no clinical linear connect, but there is definitely a high chance that it can, and the reverse, where depression can also lead to chronic fatigue. It's both ways. Which is the easiest way to do at the workout place for preventing? Sorry, can you explain? Do you mean what can you do through your workday? So, every one of our workdays is very different. I'm sure the mornings are extremely busy. And it's the hardest time to incorporate things, but I would encourage you to just, start your day with not looking at your phone. Try for the first 30 minutes of your day, don't look at your phone. When you are packing your lunch, try and ensure that there's something raw there. There's some cooked vegetable that's not cooked to death, that doesn't, have all the oil and all the masala in it. Try cook it a little less. Make sure, try avoid eating too much gluten on a daily basis, too much dairy on a daily basis. The quality of gluten, when I say gluten, I mean wheat or I mean maida. And there are gluten is hidden in many other things as well. But the reason being, the quality of wheat that we get today versus the quality even, 15 years ago is so different. It's mutated. It's not good. The same with milk. Milk today is white. Milk is not actually white. It is full today. They're chemicals, bleaching agents, and I don't know what else goes into milk. And I honestly don't want to know. The pus cells, the antibiotics over there. So if you just avoid some of these things, all of these white foods, apart from rice is not something you need to avoid, but work on incorporating enough fruits, vegetables, have some nuts, take some dry fruits. These are things you can carry to your office, right? You can keep them in your bag and they will not go bad. So work on incorporating things like that, and maybe stretch every, couple of hours. Try stand up, touch your toes, stretch up, twist a little. You don't just sit at your desk all day, right? I hope that answers your question. The next one is meditation, skipping, plank exercise is the right way to control stress. It's definitely, those tools are great. It's not the only way, but yes, they're definitely great ways to start, especially meditation. If you look at some studies and you look at the brain before meditation and 10 minutes into meditation, you'll just see how much inflammation is decreased. Another great way to do it, and of course not in this weather, but otherwise, is walking barefoot on grass. It's very grounding. It really helps with inflammation. And all of these practices need to be part of a routine. Cannot be done today and then skip for the rest of the week and then done again next week or in 10 days. It has to be done regularly, at least 5 times a week, right? The same way you go to work 5 days a week or 6 days a week, the same way you eat every meal on time, you need to look after yourself as well, right? I had this problem of being breathless post-COVID without any particular reason. And also at times after some work, which needs a little strength, which wasn't there before I had COVID. How can I work on that? It is affecting my health. You know, this is actually a very common symptom. It's, I think some people in the West call it long COVID, where the COVID symptoms don't completely go. Your body needs more energy to heal. You are not fueling your body correctly. You're not giving it enough space to heal. You're not giving it the time to heal. You need to create more time for yourself. You need to be fueling your body correctly. And if it's, you know, if breathlessness is a problem, that means you need that more oxygen needs to be going on. So, you know, try the deep breathing, try do things where you stretch and open your chest a little, you know, lie on a pillow with facing upwards and just deep breathe. Again, your fruits and your vegetables. I know it sounds like a broken tape recorder, but I cannot tell you how important these things are. Definitely try eliminate dairy and, you know, wheat from your diet, at least for 12 days, and see if it makes a difference, right? You need to ensure you're sleeping enough. I cannot stress the importance of sleep. At least 7 to 8 hours if you're dealing, especially with something like this, right? And there's another drink that really helps with the chest, which is you can make a concoction of some dates, maybe 2 or 3 dates, blend it with some warm water and add a little bit of lemon and ginger and sip that with some warm water. So it can, you know, you can put as much water as you like and sip that. That really helps with the chest. It helps, dates act as a dilator, so it helps open the arteries as well. Yeah, you can try that. Again, I'm happy to, you know, connect with any of you if you have, if you want me to repeat any of this. Yeah. Moving on, next one, question, totally depend on organic food. It's suitable for body. So, you know, when we look at organic, number one is India has no governing body to certify organic versus not. There are places that sell organic, and some of them, especially the smaller ones, I would definitely trust. But I think we need to also look at what's practical. I'd rather you eat the vegetables than not eat non-organic vegetables. So have non-organic food versus not eating it. There are a few foods, for example, that I like celery, for example, it can be very contaminated. So I'll try source organic, but organic can also be a lot more expensive. So you need to be practical about it. No, you do not need to only consume organic food. Just most of my vegetables come from the regular guy, you know, the vegetable vendor. And that's who I like to give my business to. So you don't have to get obsessed with this whole organic thing. The point is to start the journey and then keep bettering yourself through it, right? The next one, how to improve better quality sleep in spite of stress and not feeling productive in physical way, but drained mentally. This, I think all of us maybe struggle with this on some level. I know there are nights that I do as well. How do you improve it? So one is switch your gadgets off, get off your phone, get off your TV. You need to stop. I will encourage to even sometimes listen to a guided meditation or some, you know, gentle calming music. Dim the lights once the sun is setting. That is time to tell your body it is time to also slow down, right? So dim the lights, maybe use some essential oils, start your deep breathing practice, and then get into bed. And, you know, if there are things constantly going on in your mind, get a pen and paper and write it all down. Write down whatever's on your mind. And if you want, rip it up and throw it. The whole act closes the loop and it tells the body that, okay, I have dealt with this and I can revisit it later. You just feel better when it gets out. Another thing that's very important that I actually did not mention is the time to set ourselves up for the night of good rest is the morning we wake up. Try get some sunlight. Okay, I understand right now the weather's miserable and it's hard, but whenever possible, 10 minutes, 20 minutes of direct sunlight, go out there, walk in the sun, try even exercise a little in the morning. It could be a 10-minute gentle stretches, but just, the body needs to know it's daytime, it's morning, and it sets the tone it sets your whole circadian rhythm for the day ahead. Okay. And so a physical activity, I understand, might be too strenuous, too draining. A 20-minute walk is possible, and start slow. Be kind to yourself, but the most important thing is your bedtime routine. Make sure you get that correct, and slowly everything will correct. All right. I do not feel hungry in the morning and don't feel sleepy even if I'm tired, and feel anxious and restless often at night. How do I deal with it? Similar to the previous answer I gave, and this is you're tired but wired. You are running on so much adrenaline. You are not slowing down. You have to slow down through the day. You need to slow down more than anybody else. You need to shut your adrenaline. Your cortisol levels have to come down. How do we do that? After lunch, take 20 deep breaths. And this will not take you more than 2 to 3 minutes. You have the time. You have to do it. You're feeling restless and anxious. Check with your gut. Is your gut in check? Are you eating well? Are you supporting your gut? You could have a leaky gut, which means if your gut is not in check, it's going to make you feel anxious. Are you consuming too much sugar? And sugar doesn't need to mean dessert. There's sugar added, like if you eat too much wheat, if you eat too many sauces in different forms. These all have hidden sugars. So, check in with what you're eating. Again, I'm happy to go through what you're eating one-on-one and see if there are things we can eliminate. Start adding natural sugar, your fruits, your vegetables. These are great. Fruits are not bad for you. Fruits do not cause diabetes. I had a client who had gestational diabetes when she joined me. And we ensured she did not get on medication just by including fruits in her diet. Every morning on an empty stomach, she ate fruits and she avoided metformin. If you go check my Instagram page, I've done a whole post on this. I really encourage you all to include lots of fruits in your diet, right? It's safe. It's not calorie heavy. It does not spike blood sugar. It will heal you. All right. And not feeling hungry in the morning. Again, it's a sign that your adrenaline, your cortisol is just too high. You need to calm down. You have to be hungry at some point in the morning. Maybe not as soon as you wake up, but soon after that, your body requires fuel. It requires energy. Okay. Next. Thanks to answer question. Okay. All right. I think that was the last question I have. I hope I answered most of it. I know it's hard to give very specific information because I need to understand you and your lifestyle and your diet before I give, eat exactly this or do exactly that. But again, I'm happy to support wherever possible.
Hi, do you have any more questions? We have a few more minutes before we can close for today.
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much, Bhavini. That was a great session, and I hope the participants had some value from this. It was a very holistic way of putting things together. And thanks so much for your time. And thank you, participants, as well, for joining and making this evening a memorable one. And we learned a lot from the session. Thanks, Bhavini.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.